once lived in an old 2-bedroom, 3-story walk-up in my early 20s. The building had a strange, heavy silence to it, as if it was waiting for something. I chalked it up to the age of the place. The creaky wood floors, the dimly lit hallways, and the way the air just always seemed a little too still. A few days after moving in, my roommate confronted me at breakfast, his face pale, eyes darting uneasily. He accused me of banging on the wall that separated our bedrooms in the dead of night and pacing back and forth across the apartment. I stared at him, confused. I had done no such thing. Maybe you were dreaming, I suggested. He wasn't convinced. We reasoned it must have been noises from another apartment, thin walls carrying the sounds of restless neighbors. But it kept happening. Night after night, just past midnight, the knocking would start, slow, deliberate taps against the wall, followed by the creak of footsteps moving back and forth. Sometimes it sounded like someone was right outside my door. Then the smell started. It would creep into my room with no warning, a sickly, overpowering stench of cheap women's cologne, mixed with something far worse. Damp, moldy like old clothes rotting in a basement, and beneath it something sharp, almost acrid, like cat urine left to fester. Every time it hit, I'd be overwhelmed with a suffocating sense of dread, as if something unseen was watching, waiting. The longer I stayed in that apartment, the worse things became. My roommate lasted only 4 months before he broke lease and left without looking back, refusing to even find someone to take his place. I couldn't afford to move out, so I decided, in a moment of desperation, to try sleeping in his empty bedroom. Maybe whatever this was would stay confined to the old room of mine. That first night in his room, I had the most vivid nightmare I'd ever experienced. I was in the bathroom. The dim yellow light flickered, buzzing faintly overhead. The mirror above the sink was shattered, jagged shards still clinging to the frame. My reflection stared back at me, eyes hollow, mouth slightly open, in something between shock and despair. My hand lifted, a large, broken shard of glass gripped tight between my fingers. Slowly, deliberately, I dragged the edge across my cheek. I could feel the cold sting of the glass piercing my skin, and the warmth of blood seeping down my face. I woke up gasping. My heart was hammering. The mirror in the bathroom wasn't broken in reality, but nonetheless, I avoided looking at it for the days to come. Then the noises escalated. The bangs returned, louder, more insistent. The toilet would flush on its own in the middle of the night, and the bathtub faucet would twist open full blast, with water pouring into the tub at ungodly hours of the night. I would wake up drenched in sweat, the air thick with that awful smell. But the worst night, the night that finally broke me, came not long before I moved out. I was jolted awake at 2 a.m. by a deafening noise. My old analog TV had turned on by itself, its volume cranked to the max, blaring static before cutting to a late-night movie. My stomach twisted as I realized what was playing. Poltergeist. Of all the films. That TV wasn't some modern device with a remote. You had to physically turn a knob to change the channel, to adjust the volume, hell, to even turn it on. And yet, there it was, screaming in the darkness, casting flickering shadows across my walls. I barely slept after that. I started staying out late, dreading the moment I'd have to step foot back into that place. By the time my lease was up, I packed my things in record time and never looked back. I don't know what was in that apartment, whether it was something tied to the place, something that had happened there long before I arrived, or something that had been waiting for me. But I do know one thing. Whatever it was, it didn't want me there. And by the end, I didn't want to be there either. I lived in a haunted apartment. It was small, just 2 rooms. But one of them was locked, and I never had the key for it. That meant I had to make do with just a single room that functioned as my kitchen, dining area, and bedroom, along with a screened-in porch. From the very first night, something about the place felt off. The air was thick, like the walls held their breath, waiting. I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination, but the feeling really never went away. There were 2 especially freaky events that made me question my skepticism. The first happened when my girlfriend slept over. In the dead of night, she suddenly shook me awake, her face pale, her breathing ragged. She swore she had seen the bathroom door creak open on its own, and standing inside the bathroom, half consumed by darkness, was a shadowy figure. It didn't move, didn't shift, it just stood there, watching her. The bathroom was right across from a locked room. I didn't see anything myself, but the sheer terror in her voice was enough to unnerve me. She refused to stay the rest of the night, and left immediately. We never spoke of it again. The second event was more direct. I was jerked awake by a shrill, piercing sound of a fire alarm. It blared like a siren, rattling my skull. Panicked, I leapt out of bed and stumbled toward it, expecting to find smoke, fire, something. But as soon as I reached up to unplug it, the alarm abruptly cut off. The silence afterwards was almost worse. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for another sound. Shouts from neighbors, footsteps in the hall. Another alarm elsewhere in the building, but there was nothing. No other alarms were going off. It was as if the sound had just existed only in my apartment, and only for me. Other things happened. Things that could have logical explanations, but the way they occurred was unnatural. I would hear knocking, a persistent rhythmic knocking. It sounded like someone tapping a spoon on a counter. It came from the downstairs apartments. But why would my neighbor do that? Every couple of minutes, for hours, and at night. Then there were the other knocks, ones that traveled up my walls as if someone was slowly tapping their way upward, searching for something unseen. And the noises, the moaning, the howling. It was faint, like wind filtering through cracks, but it never quite sounded like the wind. It seemed to pulse through the walls, moving as if the apartment itself was exhaling too long. I considered that it could have been my neighbor's dog, but the sound never seemed to come from her apartment. It came from nowhere, and it came from everywhere all at once. The apartment across from mine had 3 different tenants within a year. People came and went, moving out almost as soon as they moved in. I couldn't help but wonder if they were experiencing the same things I was, if their locked room held the same quiet, unsettling weight that mine did. I had my own way of coping. I named the ghost Pete. The name came from old mail I still received for a previous tenant. It felt ridiculous at first, giving it a name, but somehow it helped. I started talking to Pete like it was an old, unwelcome but mostly harmless roommate. "All right, Pete, knock it off," I'd say, when the noises got too weird. I even left out a sheet of paper labeled Pete's Notes, and told him if he had any complaints, he could write them down. It was all a joke, a way to make myself feel like I had control. Like this thing, whatever it was wasn't really a threat. My girlfriend didn't find it funny. The experience shook her so much that she all but stopped coming over. Eventually, I started staying away too. The apartment wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It felt wrong. Even when nothing was happening, there was something in the air, something that made my skin crawl. I still don't know if I believe in ghosts. I've always been fascinated by the supernatural, but I never considered myself a believer. Even after everything, I tell myself, there must be some rational explanation for it all. But that apartment did something to me. It left a mark, and while I may not fully believe in ghosts, I do believe this: science doesn't know everything about the universe, and maybe, just maybe, some places hold on to things that refuse to be forgotten.